Okay, my dear friends, let's talk about angels. Malachim. Seems to be a major situation in our parsha that angels are getting very, very involved. The Hebrew word for an angel is a malach. A malach. That word malach actually is related to another Hebrew word which is malacha. Malacha. What's malacha? Work. Why is the same word for an angel, a malach, related to the word for work? Because, I know it's going to sound strange, we're not so impressed by angels. Angels come to do work. They work for us. They have a function. They have a job. They are spiritual hammers. Really? That's the way to look at it. Spiritual robots. They have a job. They have a tafkid. They get it done. And our avot were able somehow, don't ask me how, to use these beings to do their bidding. And the parsha opens in chapter Lamed Bet, Lev, so we're at the heart of Sefer Bereshit. V'yishlach Yaakov malachim. So Rashi says, what kind of malachim are we talking about? Because there are two interpretations. It could be a real malach, or it could be a messenger, someone who's getting a job done for you. Because the person who works for you could be a regular messenger who doing malacha for you. So Rashi says, no. Don't be mistaken, my dear friends. This is a malach mamash. Very good. He adds that one word, mamash. This is an actual angel. Why is Yaakov Avinu sending actual angels to send messengers to give information to his twin brother Esav? Remember, Yaakov is returning to the land of Israel. He's got his wife, he's got his kids, he's got Rechush Gadol, he's very wealthy at this point. Why is he sending action? Why can't he just send a few of his friends, a few messages? So the rabbi says something very, very important. They say that Esav needed to be warned that although Yaakov had been outside the land of Israel for many years, had not been able to perform Kibbud Avim, he was still protected by what we'll see in a moment. And therefore he sends angels to say, I still have these malachim who are working for me. I'm not coming alone. I'm coming with a whole entourage. Don't mess with me. Interestingly, others say that had he sent actual physical messengers to do his informational relay, what could have potentially happened is Yaakov, Esav, could have got really upset and done what? As we say in English, he could have killed the messenger. Right? We always say, don't kill the messenger. In this case, he could have done it. And therefore, Yaakov sent messengers in the form of actual malachim to not be injured, because he didn't want real people to die in relaying this message. By the way, is it possible that a malach could be affected by a human? Is it possible? So I can think of only one example of this that the Arizal speaks about quite phenomenally. Why? Esav's angel is going to be fighting a little bit later, but he's not really, that's the angel. I'm saying, is it possible that he could have a full long-term problem from being involved with mankind? So that would be a very good example. We see later on that Yaakov is going to fight with the angel of Esav. But actually, if we go forward a little bit further, we come to a problem. We have a problem that the Jewish people are in Mitzrayim. And we know that Hashem sent in angels to take the Jewish people, right? So Hashem says, I could send in angels, but I don't want to. Ani velo malach. Ani velo sarach. Ani saraf. Ani velo shiliach. Right? Hashem himself went in. So the Arizal says, why did he send in angels? Right? Hashem could definitely, if Yaakov can send in angels, right? Why does Hashem send in angels as well? And the answer is actually fascinating, because it was so bad in Mitzrayim. The spiritual environment in Goshen, remember, Egypt, Mitzrayim was the worst place in the entire world. Goshen was the worst of the worst. And he says, had the angels gone in, even they would have been spiritually somehow affected negatively by the environment of Mitzrayim. Obviously, Yaakov doesn't feel as though they are a danger by coming into contact with Esav, and therefore he sends them. But I guess there could have been half a minute to say, don't send angels, because even they could be spiritually and negatively affected by the matzav, by the ruach tumah, the impure events that are happening over there. Okay, fine. So these angels come in, they spread their message, and he gives them a very interesting message. He said, you know what? It's true. I have been 20 years outside of Eretz Yisrael, so I haven't had the protection of Israel. I haven't had the mitzvah kibbut of Em, but he says, Im Lavan Gariti. Im Lavan Gariti. What do you, we know. You were living with Uncle Lavan. Everyone knows that. Anyone who read the previous parasha knows what you've been dealing with the past 20 years with the biggest trickster, right, and criminal in world history. So Rashi gives us two interpretations. Everyone seems to know the second one, but the first one is actually really important as well. And Rashi says, what's gariti? What's a ger in this context in the Torah? What is a ger referring to in this context? So a ger, it actually doesn't work in modern Hebrew. Modern Hebrew seems to have switched this around. If you just say someone, Garti ba'aretz 50 shanim, I lived in Israel for 50 years, that would make sense. But actually, ger, he says, means I'm a toshav, I'm a sojourner. I was a temporary resident over there. So it's true. I was living by Lavan all these years, but the entire time I was there, it was a transitory experience. I wasn't really set up living in that world. My real residence was here in the land of Israel. This is my real home. In modern Hebrew, how do you say, by the way, to say that someone lives somewhere long-term, permanently? That's yoshev. That's yeshiva, right? But that wouldn't work, right? Shavti, you say. Shavti, that would mean a long-term planned residence. But it doesn't work in modern Hebrew. If you say shavti someone 50 years, they'll say you're stuck in one spot for 50 years. So modern Hebrew makes it get. But really, gariti means I live there as a sojourner. That's not really my home. I didn't set up shop. Everything I have is just transitory. It reminds me actually of a beautiful story. You must hear this story. This is amazing. Talking about living somewhere and seeing our place in Olam Hazeh as a transitory experience. The Chavetz Chaim, we know, lived in a small city called Radin. Actually, my wife's grandmother met him on occasion. She used to do business because she lived in a town called Aishishuk, which was a much bigger, more established city nearby. And she would see him, and she would say, by the way, that the Chavetz Chaim was appreciated as a malach in his day. Even the Goyim, even the non-Jewish nations appreciated him, and they would want him to walk past their fields because they felt that he would give bracha to their fields when he walked past. So they would try to coax him to live near their fields. So the story is told, and he lived, by the way, in a very small residence that we would call today a hovel. Literally a hovel, right? His house had like, I don't know, a bed, a chair, and that was about it, right? Right, a sandy floor or something. So the story is told that the American businessmen were coming through the area and wanted to receive a bracha from this great tzaddik, because he was known as a great tzaddik. So the story is told that they went to his home, and as soon as they walked in, they saw this, diminutive character. He was very, very small. And they couldn't believe how this great tzaddik, right, the Gadol Hador, was living. Right? It was like nothing in the house. It was like a chair and half a bed or something. And immediately, the story is told that they blurted out and said to him, "Oh my goodness, where's your furniture?" And he turned around to them without missing a beat and said, "Where's your furniture?" And they said, "No, we're from America. We're just passing through." And he said, "So am I." We're all gerim, and we're all just passing through. He was able to actually live that and live his entire life as though we are temporary sojourners in Olam Hazeh. That's what we're doing over here. More about that in a second. So that's the first Peshat of Rashi. Although I've got a lot of wealth, I'm not here to conquer Olam Hazeh. That's your job. I'm here to prepare for Olam Haba. Garti, however, is... So that's really... It's almost like he's trying to calm him down. Like, don't worry, I'm not here to take your portion, Esav. Do not worry about me. Any wealth I have, that's just a temporary thing. I'm going to use it in order to achieve things in this world. And then he gives him a bit of a warning. Garti is well, first of all, it's a gematria, right? But it's also an acronym. Garti is an acronym, right? It's also Taryag. It's the same word, same letters mixed up. Taryag is actually 613 mitzvot. So he says, it's true I've been there, but don't think I'm lacking spiritual power to destroy you. I can destroy you if need be, because I have with me the 630 mitzvot, the ones that I were able to do, obviously, in Chutz La'aretz, because most mitzvot you cannot do in Chutz La'aretz. I think 52% of the mitzvot are Talui Baris, can only be fulfilled in the land of Israel. However, I have them with me. So, first of all, he starts to be very, humble. Don't worry, this is your world. My world is Olam Haba. And then he says, but hey, don't mess. Don't mess with me. I have the power of Torah Mitzvot. I have God on my side. Okay? As these angels that I sent you. By the way, these angels came from where? As a side point. Where do they come from? So actually, we've met these angels before in last week's parsha. We know that angels live in Israel. They went up to Shemaim, right? They were the Olim angels when he had that dream on Har HaBayit and the Sulam. So they went up. And then we know the Chutz La'aretz angels came down. So they were with him outside the entire time. By the way, if it happens to Yaakov, it can happen to us as well. We could have Malachim who are protecting us at any given time, whether inside of Israel or outside of Israel. At the end of the parsha, we know that he had Machanaim, 2 camps. Rashi says, I'll tell you what, the last word of last week's parasha, of Parsha Yetzeh, are 2 camps of Malachim. So he says, you know what? These Malachim, Chutz La'aretz, these Malachim now, I don't need anymore. I'm going to rejoin my Israel Malachim right now. What does he do with the Chutz La'aretz Malachim? He sends them to Har Seir. And they're the ones he's actually using at the beginning of the parasha. He's like, fine, I don't need your protection anymore. I'm going back in. Boop, off you go. You can go back to Chutz La'aretz jobs, but go and send this message to Esav in Har Seir. Then he makes a very unusual comment. I've read the parasha hundreds of times. And you're like, why is he mentioning this? And he says, by the way, Vayhi li shor v'chamor. I have ox and I have a donkey. He had way more than that. Yaakov left Eretz Yisrael very, very poor, but he turned back and returned with a lot of wealth, which we mentioned on Shabbat. This actually is the same way his descendants are going to return right before Mashiach comes. The descendants of Yaakov are going to return to Eretz Yisrael right before Mashiach comes with great wealth and great success, and they're going to have much wealth and success in the land of Israel. And this is hinted at in the Amidah, in the Shemona Esrei, because the bracha of Mevarech Hashanim, Barucheinu, Baruch Aleinu, comes right before Taka Shofar. Taka Shofar, what's Shofar? The Shofar of sounding the imminent arrival of Mashiach. So those two are juxtaposed to tell us that right before we announce Mashiach, we're going to have great wealth and success in the land of Israel. The land is going to give of its fruits, and we're going to be living in a very financially substantial time, which we're seeing now for the first time in 2,000 years. You go back 100 years or 80 years, and the whole place was really a dust bowl, to be honest with you. And now we're seeing, Baruch Hashem, we're seeing live with our eyes exactly what Yaakov was told. Okay, fine. So what is this shor and chamor? So the shor, the ox, we know is a code word for Yosef, for Joseph. Yosef, Moshe Rabbeinu, is going to describe as a shor. Who's the chamor? Who do we know is a chamor? So, very, very good. Yisachar. Yisachar is a chamor. Now, if I called you a chamor, a donkey, am I complimenting you or am I insulting you? Well, it depends whose donkey it is and what this donkey is all about, right? So in some cases, it could be an insult. Over here, it's a massive compliment because it's a reference to a very certain chamor. A chamor gorem, a strong chamor. Yisachar was going to have a very important job, right? Yaakov's son. And he's like, I have this with me now. What job did Yisachar have? Limot Torah. As opposed to his brother Zevulun, who was business. What kind of business? Not monkey business. Real business. Parnassah business of making parnassah by being on the ships. He lived on the coast of Israel and he's doing business. Whose job was that originally? Was that always meant to be Zevulun's job? No. That actually was meant to be Esav's job. Esav's job was meant to be to make parnassah for his twin brother Yaakov. That was actually the way the system was. That was plan A. Many times in the Torah and world history, we have a plan A. Plan A falls away, and then plan B kicks in. This is one of them. Zevulun was plan B. Plan A was meant to be that Esav was meant to make parnasah and financially support the Torah and the spiritual goals of his brother. That's what the non-Jewish world was meant to be. Esav says, I'm not interested. I'm going to assimilate. I'm going to intermarry. You're on your own. So now Yaakov's in trouble. He's got to marry two sisters because Esav was also meant to marry Leah. And now he's got to also take care of his own finances. So he says, you know what? I have Zevulun. Zevulun's going to do your job. I'm not happy about it. I want him also working on himself spiritually, teaching Torah. But I don't have that luxury. And therefore, among the Jewish people, we're always going to have people who work and support financially the spiritual endeavors of their brothers and sisters. And that's Zevulun. But Yisachar remains true to his original mission, which is being a donkey. What is it about a donkey that represents this concept of Torah? It doesn't seem to be. So I'll tell you what, it's amazing. And the rabbi says something fascinating about donkeys. The donkey is not like a horse. Donkeys can keep moving and walking even with a pechalach on their back. A horse wants to rest. What do? They take the saddle off. Right? The sus is strong, represents power. But they always have to unsaddle it for it to rest. The donkey is not like that. The donkey is able to keep moving and to rest even with its pack on, and then get up again and poof, off it goes. That is the spiritual vision of Yisachar and all of us as well. That's what we're doing right now. We right now all have parnasah situations. We have situations of financial issues. We're dealing with all this stuff all the time. And we're able to stop and be here in a class or watch Torah online while still having your pekalach, right? Still having your financial worries on your back. That's chamor gorem. Oh, mwah, delicious. That is what Yisachar was the master of, and that is the bracha that Yaakov says, you, Yisachar, you're going to able to keep learning Torah, doing mitzvot, and teaching Torah, even though you have parnasah, boom, 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 on your head the entire time. That is the power of the chamor that you want to relate to. The chamor generally represents chamor, chumriyut, physicality, right? That's why Mashiach is going to come like an ani rochav al chamor. One version of Mashiach's arrival is a very physical, non-miraculous version. That's not the version we want, my friends. We want the spiritual version. We want to come like a kochav, right? Rochav haaretz, right? That like a star shining through the rakia, through the sky. That's the version we want. There's two possible versions of Mashiach coming. In the end, he's definitely going to come. And the chamor represents the more physical. But we're stuck in a physical world. Ribono shel olam, what do you want from me? Right? I got, being a Jew, it ain't cheap. I got tuition. I got to pay the Bet Knesset, right? I got to pay for Shabbat, Chagim. That's the power of the chamor, is able to work and yet rest and do its right job at the same time. Okay, so that is now Yaakov was also a little bit nervous. He still had his brother. He still loved him. And as they say, blood is thicker than water. See, he was a little bit nervous. We said yesterday that he was going to get killed, but also even more nervous that he would have to kill his brother, though his brother had become chutz lamachaneh, had removed himself from here. Okay, let's get to the meat over here, and that is the famous fight, the famous battle between Yaakov and some man who is quite mysterious over here. And who is this man? We're told that this actually was the malach of Esav. The malach of Esav. So before he has this physical meeting with Esav, he has a spiritual battle that he's going to have to fight. Look at the order. The order is important. First of all, we have a spiritual battle when it comes to our enemies. We have to spiritually prepare ourselves, and Yaakov is the perfect example of that. Before he goes and deals with Lavan for 20 years, he spends 14 years in yeshiva preparing himself as well. We still do this. Before we send our boys and our daughters, right, our girls, to the physical world to make parnasah, we always say, you should spend time in yeshiva. I mean, nowadays they spend their entire lives in yeshiva, right? A luxury our ancestors never had, right? Because our ancestors were working at the age of 9, you know what I'm saying? They were, up the chimney, right, down in the pit. They were working very, very, very young. We now, Baruch Hashem, we have full-time education for our children, all to our children. And then we do something even more important. We send them for a year to Eretz Israel to study Torah, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years. I should tell you, my daughter, live me well, is right now in Eretz Israel for 1 year. She had the opportunity to come back. We were in Israel for the war, and we said, listen, it's scary. If you want to come back, well, I had to come back. We gave her the choice. She's an adult, and she said, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to stay here. I want to learn Torah. Many of my friends, by the way, about 30% of the yeshiva flew back, by the way. Okay? They actually came back. And she said, I don't want to do it. Rabbi Dessler says, you cannot compare the Torah in Eretz Yisrael to the Torah in Chutz La'aretz. Really, the Torah in Eretz Yisrael could be worse than the Ben Ish Chai 1,000 times more than the Torah in Chutz La'aretz. You have to prepare yourself there. And that is precisely what Yaakov did. He is doing the same. He is now sending a message. He's now saying, before I fight the physical Esav, I'm going to fight this spiritual one as well. The fight itself is very, very interesting. How it ends is interesting. I just want to pick on one small window, which doesn't seem to have much relevance. We'll leave the sciatic nerve, the Gida Nashel. That's very interesting, why that part of the body. But I want to talk about something which the Malach tells Yaakov right before he leaves. He leaves him with parting words. We know he changed his name. Doesn't change his name. He adds a name. It's an important difference. Right? He adds the name Yisrael to him, which means you've striven with me. Yisrael comes from here. Yashar El, straight to God. Yisrael, you took on a fight. You fought with me, the Malach, and you overcame me, which means that life in this world, especially in Eretz Israel, is always going to involve a fight. Okay, by the way, he's called Yaakov as well afterwards. Avraham is never called Avram afterwards. Sarah is never called Sarai afterwards. So this is not a name change, it's a name addition. He's still going to have to use the power of Yaakov as that name, which means more of a physical fight for the rest of history as well as Yisrael. So it's a name addition. Interesting. But we'll leave that aside. Look at Pasuk Chaf Zayin. The Yomer, the angel says to Yaakov, Shalcheni, let me go. I want to go. I have shlichut. What's my shlichut? What's an angel got to do with himself? He's going shopping. He's going to go to work. So actually, he does. Chachamim tell us, Rashi tells us, he's got to go and sing shirah, sing songs of praise to Hashem. That's what the Malachim do 24. When they're not working for us, they're praising Hashem, right? That is why we say Magdishim, right? Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. That Kadosh, Kadosh, who is saying Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh? Two opinions. One opinion is us. We are the Kadoshim who say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Other is actually the Malachim. And we're like them. They praise Hashem 24/7. And we're now going to praise you, right? Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh as well. But the real interpretation probably is the Malachim. But we kind of join in with them at various times. So check this out. He says, I got to get out of it because it's the morning. Ki Allah hashachar vayomer lo shachar im brachatani. He says, first of all, give me a bracha. Well, by the way, that's interesting. You want a bracha? Can you get a bracha from an angel? Is that even possible? Are angels able to give us barachot? What? They have a mind of their own. But can they give us brachot? Are they able to do it? I know many people who don't have a mind of their own, they still give brachot. So actually, it's a very interesting argument which takes place on Friday night. Friday night, we have this exact discussion, and there are various minhagim based upon this. We say, Shalom Aleichem Malchei Hasharet Malachei Elyon, right? And then we say, Baruch Hu. Who are you talking to? The Malachim. There are some people who don't like this, and they eject this Baruch Hu. He goes, you can't ask a Malach for a bracha. If you look at these Fardim Sidurim, some people will say it, and some people, boop, they toss it out, right? They don't like it. So well, you can't ask a Malach for a bracha. And I will say to you, excuse me, Yaakov Avinu asked a bracha, and he got a bracha. So what's the big deal? Hashem gives Malachim various agencies to fulfill God's will. And therefore, can you ask a person for a bracha? Can you ask a person for a bracha? Of course you can. By the way, not just you can ask anyone for a bracha. Even a birchat hediot. I'll take kal benecha. Don't let the blessing we mentioned before of an idiot. Well, hediot means an ordinary person. The word idiot does come from the word hediot, right? But same. It's etymologically connected. It does come from it, all right? Hediot, but it's not an insult. Hediot means an ordinary person, and therefore you should actually go around asking people for a brachot. And by the way, right? Even if a person says mazal tov to you, they're not wishing you good luck. They're giving you a bracha. If someone says mazal tov, they're not saying, good luck. Oh, you had a baby? Right? Oh, good luck with that. Right? Because they're going to drive you crazy. Right? They're going to be taking your money for the next 18 years. Or if they're Jewish, 35 years. Right? Forget about it. It ain't going to work. And the answer is, no. Ask everyone for a bracha. You never know who Hashem is shining His light on at that exact moment. And maybe that bracha will be mekuyam, will work for you. I think I mentioned the story before, if I did mechila. But I was an older bachur. It took me time to find a wife willing to marry me. And so it was Rosh Hashanah, and I said, enough, dayenu. I want to get married. This is ridiculous. So I went around on Rosh Hashanah to everyone in the Bet Knesset. That's a bracha. And they always say, no, who might give you a bracha? And I'm like, I don't care. Give me a bracha. Birchat Hediyat. And I got a bracha from every single male in the Bet Knesset. And it happens to be that year I got married. I kala soon afterwards, and I got married. Related? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. You can ask for a bracha. And therefore, it's okay on Friday night to say, Baruchuni Melachim. You've come in, you see that I keep Shabbat, you see the table is late, and it's okay. And those people who don't want to do it are here. But if you ask my personal opinion, you're missing out on a beautiful opportunity. Okay? On a beautiful opportunity. Fine. But I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus for just 2 minutes on this last part, and we're going to finish with this. Ki Allah shachar. It was the morning time. Who is this angel? The angel of Esav. We said that every one of the Shivim Umot, every one of the 70 nations, core nations that exist in this world. I know in the United Nations they have 130, but actually there's 70 core nations that exist in this world. Okay? And we know that each and every one of them has a specific tafkid, a specific job that it has to do in Olam Hazeh. So what's happening is this. Yaakov Avinu is now actually talking not about now, but about the future. About the future. Because in the future, Esav are going to appear on the world stage of history at a place called Har Seir. Whether it's a physical location or a spiritual location, we're not sure. But there's going to be a battle with the Bnei, children of Esav. That's why Yaakov says to him, I'm going to meet you at Har Seir. He doesn't. If you look at him, he just goes home, goes to Eretz Yisrael. And he says, don't, I'll meet you over there. So the rabbis come like, this meeting of Yaakov and Esav is not about them. It's about their descendants at the end of days, right before Mashiach comes. At that point, there's going to be a final battle between Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yaakov, that's us, and the Bnei Esav. And that's going to happen right at the end of days. How do you say the end of days? One of them is at daybreak. At daybreak. Because we know Galut is nighttime. And we mentioned before that Yaakov is Mr. Nighttime. Remember, he went to sleep and had his Nuvuah at nighttime. And we know that he created Arvit, which is nighttime. And he's the one who's leaving Eretz Yisrael into the darkness of Galut. So Yaakov, which we all come from, we are the descendants of Yaakov's Galut. Because we're still in Galut. Even the Jews in Eretz Yisrael right now are in Galut. Because Galut means we do not have Shalom. And so this code, say the rabbis, unbelievable. He's saying, I need to go. It's morning, daybreak. So Yaakov is like, you're right. It's nearly day. There's going to be a time. And this is the metaphor of the rabbis to describe the messianic redemption. It's from nighttime, because it's the darkest, right before daybreak. This daybreak is the daybreak of the redemption of the Jewish people in the future. And this malach is saying, my job is only to hurt the Jewish people when it is dark in Galut. But there will be a time when I'm going to be let go, and I'm going to have to do this job anymore. I'm not going to represent Esav anymore. I'm going to be able to bless the Jewish people in the future at the time of Alot HaShachar. What Alot HaShachar? When the pillars of dawn come up, that's a metaphor for the Geula, the redemption, which is referred to as daybreak. So right here, seated inside this battle between Yaakov and Esav is actually the final battle of good and bad, and the final redemption of the Jewish people that's going to happen right before Mashiach comes, God willing. Don't think it's an afterthought. The whole thing started Sof Maaseh b'machshavat tchila. The end of all action is the beginning of all thought, and this is where it comes from, of daybreak and redemption. The Yaakov was promised by this angel of Esav that one day no more war, no more bloodshed. It's going to happen very soon, B'ezrat Hashem, in our time. Have a wonderful and successful day.